honor to introduce you to Shetellia Riley Irving, and I want all of you to give her some love and some energy as I step away and give her the stage.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am so happy, so honored to get a chance to stand in front of you. I am going to be probably less formal than most, simply because I really believe in being intentional and giving people information that they can use. So it's not going to be a pie in the sky and you can do it and buy my book. This is going to be something that I hope that if I see you again 10 years from now, that you'll be able to say to me, you made an impact in my life. And so that is what I hope to obtain from this conversation today. It is very interesting, and you don't even know this, because I realized this probably 10, 15 minutes ago. About almost 10 years to the date, my daughter London and I and Erica Badu and a client that I was representing at the time, Walmart, had this bright idea to really make Christmas better for some deserving people within the community. And so we spent about 48 hours kind of decorating a room and making this space special, and really granting some needy kids with some things that otherwise they may not have received. And so to be able to stand in this room 10 years later, almost 10 years later, just really talks about purpose and God being in the middle of it. And so that's really how I will start my conversation with you about what it is I do, how I move forward in the world, and what's important for me. And I will say to you, the two most important relationships in life that you will ever have, or that you should ever have, and this is what is the secret to my success, the secret to how I have been successful in everything that I've touched, whether or not it's been media, whether or not it's been sports, is the relationship that I have with God and the relationship that I have with myself. And that is something that each and every day I spend the time to perfect and to master. When you think about entrepreneurship, when you think about success, you have to know who you are first. You have to fall in love with who you are first. And then you have to also have that relationship with God, because that is what directs your path. You can read book after book, you can come to seminars like this, but if you don't really know who you are and where you stand and what's important, and ask God to really put you on that path, I promise you it won't work. And so that was really what my journey was about. My parents were always very much of parents that allowed me to explore. They understood that I was a child that wasn't going to be kept into a tight confine. So they encouraged me to travel. They encouraged me to explore. My parents were hardworking, first generational college graduates, and they really understood the child that they had. They knew that I was a brainstormer. But one of the things that my parents really made sure I had a relationship early on was that relationship with God. And so even though my mom was Baptist and my father was Methodist and I went to Catholic school, they really infused understanding what life is and understanding the purpose of life. They instilled in me that value system of it's hard work, it's knowledge, it's being prepared. It's that sometimes life will knock you down, but you have to believe in that higher purpose to get back up. And so those were the things that they were very instrumental in instilling within me, and it gave me courage. And so I had this bright idea. When I was 20 years old, I fell in love and I moved to this big city called New York City. And one of the things my dad said as I was packing my bags was, make sure you love the city more than you love the guy, because it's not going to work. And I was so upset, because I'm like, how are you telling me that the love of my life wasn't going to work? It didn't work. I'm here to tell you it did not work, right? But I fell in love with the city. And it's 1996. I move on Friday the 13th on a one-way ticket that stopped in 3 different cities. And I was just so committed to the relationship and to the 2 loves of my life, which were New York and this particular gentleman. I'll leave his name out because he's not here to defend himself. He may have a different perspective of the story. But I moved to New York and had these bright dreams and bright ideas, and life changed. I moved, I didn't have a place to stay. I stood at the airport for hours. My mother is watching this, and this is the first time she's probably hearing this, so she's gonna be texting me in 2 seconds. But I stood at the airport for hours waiting. And he didn't show up for hours. Dead serious. And I've forgiven, he's forgiven, we've moved on. But it's just talking about this life of believing in yourself. I didn't allow that to knock me down. I didn't get on the first flight back to Houston, because that's where I was born and raised. I didn't get on the first flight back to Houston because I fell in love with the city. And I believed in myself so much that it didn't matter whether or not he picked me up or whether or not he showed up, I was still gonna make it. And so I stayed. And I stayed on the kindness of others. Because what God does for you when you have that relationship with yourself, and you have that relationship with God, is that even though that door may close, a little bit of a window opens. And so that kindness of strangers really allowed me to stay in a city that really I call the belly of the beast. It's feast or famine. It's not a city for the light. You have to have thick skin to make it. So I stay in New York and I get a job at a rock radio station in an industry. Now, radio at the time, I was one of 5. There weren't many people that looked like me. And I remembered when I interviewed, I was told Madison Avenue isn't ready for someone that looks like you. Now today we'd be like, oh my God, that's politically, well, not today, probably. Let me go back, because I know who's in office now. Let me pull that back. 2 years ago, 2 years ago, they would have said that's not politically correct. But at the time, it was fuel for my fire, because in that moment, I didn't look at color as being a barrier. I said I was the best for the job, even though I typed 15 words a minute, and the job called for you to type 75. And I pecked my way into becoming the local sales manager of Power 105.1 FM in New York City. And so through that, I learned something about kindness. I learned something about tenacity. I learned something about hard work. And I learned even more the power in believing that I had the ability to control my outcome with God by my side. So there were days, there were nights. I remember my first radio sale. It was with a hospital in New York. I got lost on the bus and the train. I had my last $20. And at the time, you could buy a subway token at a store. And I used my last $20 to buy a subway token, and he gave me a counterfeit 10 and a counterfeit 5. Okay? And I finally made it to the hospital, and I walk in, and I was like 3 hours late, and the guy was like, absolutely not, this is not the way. And I said, sir, you're gonna hear what I have to say. Because I know that what I am offering you is gonna make the difference. I'm not here to take your money, I'm here to make you be better. And so I ended up getting the order. I go back, I'm all excited. I go back and I try to trade in my $5 to get a subway token home. And they were like, girl, what are you trying to do? This is counterfeit. And through grace, I managed to get back on the train, and through grace made it home. And it really started a career for me in radio, where people said, Madison Avenue isn't ready for someone that looks like you. And so you fast forward, and I walk the halls of Power 105.1, which is the home of the Breakfast Club. So it's amazing what I started and what it has become to this day. And I walk the halls reminding myself that in your mind, Madison Avenue wasn't ready. But in God's choice, he had already made the decision that I was going to be where I was going to be. And so time passed, and I ended up getting an opportunity to work at BET, Black Entertainment Television. And why it was such a full circle moment for me was I grew up in Houston, Texas, as I said earlier, and Black Entertainment Television was the first place that I saw people that looked like me, that had hair like me, skin complexion like me, that had families like me. And I really, like, in that moment, I was like, one day I want to be there. And so when Louis Carr and Ray Goulbourne walked me in and said, you know what, we're hiring you, we want you to be a part of this, it was a full circle moment for me. Because I was like, you know what, God does answer prayers, because I never thought that at 12 years old, I would be working at a place like Black Entertainment Television. And it was a place that I understood what it meant to be Black. I understood what it meant to be a Black woman, but what they helped me to better understand that there is such power in who we are. And what they made me even understand more, that when I was born as a Black woman, I hit the lotto jackpot. It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, was being born as a Black woman. And that is something that I want every woman to look at, that in spite of what is going on right now, you hit the jackpot when you were born a Black woman. Now, this is not to say that if you were born a Black man, you didn't. I'm not saying that, but I'm talking to my Black women right now, because I want you to understand that in spite of it all, in spite of what people tell you, you've already made the jackpot. The art is just learning how to cash in on that jackpot, right? And so going to BET, that was something that I realized, that there is power in being a people of color, because in spite, when everybody tells us no, we always figure it out. When people close the door and say, no, you could never, some of the best products, some of the best services, some of the best things in life are created when someone told us no. And that came from us, or that particular person, believing in themselves that no, it's just a bump in the road. It's not even a setback. It's just time for me to continue to push forward. So I go to BET and I obtain my master's, my bachelor's, my PhD, my PsyD, my philosophy degree, because I had to go in every day and tell people why we were important. I had to go in and talk about how much money we spend in the marketplace as a people of color. I had to go in and talk about our desire, our wants, our needs, and why you can't ignore it. I mean, we've already learned that we can shift an election when we need to, right? And I know that we're going to do it again, but we've decided to allow you to take your punishment because you made decisions and decided that we weren't smart enough to follow once again. So we taking our vacation and we resting for a little bit. You know, we're going to get riled up again, but we're going to let you suffer and experience what you need to experience so that next time you know what to do and you won't have question marks and you won't be easily bamboozled because you make decisions that aren't correct. And I'll leave that there. And those that can read between the lines understand what I am saying. And so I had the joy and the honor to represent some of the top 50, top 100 clients in the world. And the reason why I say it was the best bachelor's, master's, PsyD degree, because they taught me negotiation. Because what I didn't recognize is that God was preparing me for the next phase in my life. And they taught me pride. and they taught me how not to be fearful. And they taught me how to think. And it was the best almost 13, 15 years of experience. And then I get a phone call, and we're in the heart of the pandemic, from my lovely bonus son, Kyrie Irving. And he says, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just sitting around watching TV. He said, you know, I want to hire you. How much would it cost for you to leave BET? And I said, oh, baby, you can't afford me. And he said, wait, what? I said, no, you can't afford me. You can't put a price on a labor of love. You can't do that. I said, so I'll come in. I said, I really don't know sports. I've been in media for years and years. I'll come in and I'll help and see what we can create. And if it doesn't work, you know, I'm just there to help. But babe, you can't put a price on love, because love shows up, and love doesn't ask you for a check at the end of it. And that's the unique, beautiful thing about love. God loves us no matter what, but he doesn't turn around and say, okay, because I saved you and I did this and I did that, you owe me this, right? Doesn't do that. So I start working with Kyrie, and I form a sports marketing agency, and it came out of the conversations that I had with him about what was important as an athlete, right? Because for him, it was, I am standing on everything you taught me. I am standing for what I believe in. I am standing in honor. I'm standing in intention. And I want someone to understand that it's not always about the money, but it's about being able to look at yourself in the mirror and being okay with who you are. It's about standing in God's purpose. It's about being a light when there's darkness. And so as I really talked to him and understood him, that was how I created All Even Sports, because it's not about going out and saying, hey guys, I have this big deal for you, because the money will always come. It is about being able to say that you stood for something and that you didn't fall for anything, right? And so we fast forward, and I take on this beautiful idea and concept of managing Kyrie, and it's the heart of COVID. And now there are like 4 cities that decide you can come into our city and play basketball and not be vaccinated. But if you live in the city, you have to be vaccinated. So I'm sitting down and I'm like, all right, Kai, what are we gonna do? And he's like, you know, I gotta feel comfortable, because my body is a temple. And I have to feel comfortable about what I put inside of my body. And he said, and furthermore, they told us that this is not something that we would have to do, that we would have to do this. And so we wrestled back and forward with what does it look like? And so I remember us sitting on the floor, and I said, Kai, you have a decision. I said, you can become Muhammad Ali, or you can make the decision to play and just take the shot. And he said, I have to stand on what I believe in. And he refused to take the shot. Now here it is, again, I'm new. I've never experienced anything like this. But what I said to him is that we don't walk in fear. God got us. And so no matter what, we walk forward. And so we walked forward, and everybody was like, oh my God, it's the craziest decision in the world. Why would he do this? You know, does he know how much money he's leaving on the table? Who's advising him? Who's telling him to do? And every day you'd wake up and you'd read something and you'd be like, oh God. Oh God. But we walked in purpose, and we walked with no fear. And so you fast forward, he's now back to active play, and now we're playing, and then the infamous link happened. And so now, you know, you get a phone call and you're like, oh my God, this was posted, and what are you going to do? And I'm not going to dive into that, you know, too much, because I think that this is, you know, something that requires a much longer than a 10 to 15-minute conversation. But once again, in some of the darkest hours when you saw no light and you felt like you were by yourself, God carried you. And now we're in Dallas. And through it all, we always believed, and this is something all of my kids, whether or not it's Asia, or Kyrie, or London, that life is about purpose. Life is about focus. Life is about discipline. But most importantly, life is about the two most important relationships that you will ever have, and that is with yourself, and that is with God. Because when you know yourself and you really have a conversation with yourself, you're able to admit what some of your things that you may not be the best at, right? When you have those honest conversations with yourself, you're able to be committed and honest with everyone else. And as you think about whether or not it's, I want to grow a business, whether or not it's when I want to bring my family back together, whether or not it's, I want to be a pillar in the community, the most important relationship, again, is that relationship you have with yourself, because then you can go to that higher being and say, okay, this is who I am. Now use me to be what you want me to be. Because when you stand by yourself without principle, without guidance, without foundation, without structure, unfortunately what happens is that you fall into all of these things that just don't make sense. But when you stand in a place of a higher being, a higher source, and you say, here it is, here is who I am. And I am operating on principle, I'm operating on focus, I'm operating on discipline, I'm operating on intentional. God lead me, God guide me. I've seldom made a mistake. And that's the honest truth. And all of the things, whenever I've operated on my own self, oh, it's been bad. When I tell you it's been bad, it's been like, ooh, I am drowning. Just give me a life, whatever you can give me, because I am drowning in this. But when I've operated and said, God, I want to be used, and I want you to use me in the best way that you possibly can, because I know that I can be an inspiration in this, is always when I've been able to excel. And so I want to move a little bit, and I hope that that is very clear through, what I've talked about in terms of my experiences. What are those two most important relationships you should have? There are things that every day, there are 5 pillars that I live my life on, right? And those are the things that when I think about those pillars in terms of where I live my life and what's important in my life, one of the first ones is I protect my peace and I nurture my energy. Yes. And so those things that don't contribute positively to me, I let that go and I let God. And that is something I think is a practice that everybody should really do, is protect your peace. Things that people that are not invested in your growth and you're not investing in their growth, spend as little time as possible, because we don't understand the impact of that negative energy. When you talk to somebody who says you can't, this mind absorbs that and it creates this barrier for you where you really, really believe in some way or in some capacity that you can't. The other thing that I do is I give generously and I receive gracefully. And so this is a very important component, because I hate the tug of war of, I did this for you, so you need to do this for me. I hate, that is something that, for me, I hate that, right? If I do for you, I do for you because God told me to do for you. I'm not doing for you because I expect in some way that if I do this, that you're going to pay me back, because there is no way you can pay back generosity. So when someone gives you something, right? And this is something I think that we all need to kind of work on. Say thank you. Even when they're like, you don't have to, no, I do want to thank you. Because I want you to give generously, right? And I want you, and I want to receive it gracefully. The other thing is, I am always a student of life. I love learning new things. I am the person, I was like, I am never a person, there are conference calls I have, and I could talk to the president of whatever, and I will always say, talk to me like I'm two. Yes. And someone says, why do you do that? I said, because I don't want to be the smartest in the room. I want to be a student. I want to learn the pros, the cons, the plus, the minuses, all of the things, so that when I have to make a decision on behalf of someone that impacts their life multiple of millions of dollars, that impacts their generational wealth, that I've made that decision as a student of life, that I've made that decision with all of the necessary information and details, that I can stand firm in what that decision is. Last but not least, I always honor the power that guides me. And so what I mean by that is, in everything that I do, I thank God. When I get up in the morning, my neighbors probably hear me saying, you know what, God, I thank you. I thank you for my health. I thank you for things being as good as they are. I thank you for my family. I thank you for the struggles. I thank you for the wins. I thank you for the losses. I thank you. And that is something that I think we sometimes thinks that we do, because I think sometimes we pray and we're like, God, I thank you for this, but you know what? You could have sent that. Or God, you know what? This is good, but I want to get to a higher space, a higher place. And we don't understand that God just want to be praised, even for the little things. And so sometimes I'm in a McDonald's and I'm like, God, I thank you for this Coca-Cola. I love it. It is the best thing ever. It just filled me to every core. And that is what is important. And so those are the things that I do so often, every day. And it's helped me to accomplish all of the things that I've been able to accomplish. You know, when there are things that I feel as if I have doubt about, I'll always say, all right, God, what do you think? How should I go? Where should I go? And then I'm always trying to be a vessel and being a place and a space where people can find something. And I always don't have the time, because sometimes people, they take a lot of time because they need a lot more. But I encourage you, like, when you find that person that can invest in you, be mindful of the time, because there's so many other people that God wants them to invest in. And so take your time and then continue. Okay, God, thank you for this person. Where else should I go? And that's why I'm really talking about having that best relationship with yourself, and then having that relationship with God. And that's something that I, emphasize so much through this journey. I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to travel around the world. And there's this universal theme of, whether you're in China, you're in the Middle East, or in Europe, or in Southeast Asia, there's this universal theme of family and support that transcends cultures, that transcends beliefs. And that is something that I think, being a community and being a community of support is something that we need to all embrace. Now, getting into, I know that everybody's like, and I know we're gonna get into questions, but getting into, success and the things that you should do, and what should your regimen be, or how should you focus, or where should you focus? I think the first thing is, thank you so much, as you are a student, be honest about what you know and what you don't know. And that is something that you have to strive every day. If it's something you don't know, take a class. If it's something that you don't know, get the best advice from somebody that can really help you. Don't be afraid of criticism. I get criticized every day. Every day. My day is every day I get criticized, right? And I have learned to listen to all, but dwell on those that only make me better. And so that is where I live. I'm a big proponent of writing things down, because it is really, if you want to be successful, you got to write stuff down. And so sitting down and saying, hey, I want to buy a house, means nothing if it's just here. But when you write it down, you say, I want to buy a house, and you look at it, you're like, I need a little bit more to that. So it's, I want to buy a house in the next 6 months. And then you look at it again, you're like, I need more to it. And then it becomes, I want to buy a house in the next 6 months in this area. And then guess what happens? You start to look in that area and you're like, ooh, so I want to buy a house in the next 6 months in this area, and I want this house to cost XYZ amount of money. And then you look at it and you're like, okay. Start to look at banks and you're like, ooh, I want to buy a house in the next 6 months, and I want it in this area, and I want it to cost this amount of money, and I need to get a down payment of this amount of money. And you look at that again, and you're like, I want to buy a house in this area, it costs this amount of money, I need to get this down payment, and my credit score needs to be this. And guess what happens? Over time, you start to do the behavior that you need to buy a house in this area with this amount of a down payment that costs this amount of money with this credit score. And then you look up and you're like, God, how did I get this house? And you go back to that piece of paper, because that piece of paper did what? It directed your steps. And it made it more real for you, because it forced you to really think about the relationship you have with yourself and the relationship you have with God. Because it's one thing to say, I want to buy a house in this area that's $1 million. I need a $200,000 down payment, and you have no means of really getting the $200,000 as a down payment. So those are the things that, you always say, I want more time, and I'm looking at the time. Now we have like 11 minutes left. But those are the things that, just as foundational basics, that I just kind of want you, if I can just instill anything, relationship you have with yourself, relationship you have with God, write things down, be intentional, be honest. And also, your most important thing is how you treat other people. Because whether you realize it or not, those are the people that, whether they are silent, whether you meet them for a second, or you have them in your lives for the next 30 years, they are the people that kind of keep investing. Those interactions keep investing into your future. And so when you cheat people, you get cheated. When you love on people, you get loved. When you support people, you get supported. And it doesn't always come from that same person that you supported. Because sometimes, remember I said a friendly stranger came in and gave me a place to stay, right? And so for each of you, that's what that investment is when you think about treat people. And not, this tradition of treat people the way you want to be treated. No, it's deeper than that. Understand that the way that you treat people is exactly what comes back to you. Questions? Hopefully this was good. Everybody got something out of it. I'm not always the best with time because you'll be still sitting here 3 hours later, and I know that you guys have things to do on a Saturday, but any questions, anything?
Yeah, so here's how we're going to do questions. If you have questions, please get up and form a line over here so that you can ask your question. But while you're doing that, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you talked about a lot, touched on a lot of great gems. We're going to talk about focus right now because, you wear many hats. Mm-hmm. You're an executive, you're a mom, you're a founder, you're an agent. How do you decide what to focus on and what to say no to?
Mm-hmm. That's the hardest thing. And I've not mastered that. That is something that each and every day is a challenge for me because I have a spirit of wanting to help. And so if you reach out to me, I'm gonna find some time in that moment to figure it out. It's a great question. I've not mastered it. And I'm gonna always be honest. I've not mastered. And I'm like, ooh, I forgot. I'm so sorry. And so I find me saying that often. I think when you think of how do you prioritize? Family should always be first. And I always try to kind of multitask within family and doing those things. But it is not something that I've mastered. No. I am still a student in training on that. So maybe hopefully in a year, I kind of give myself some timelines and say, okay, in a year, try to get that together. I've been promising myself I'm going to learn how to swim. It has been 30 years. I've not done it yet. So that is something that I'm really, really trying to master.
That's good. Before we go to this, I got to say this. I'm going to give a shout out to your daughter, London. Because she's like, how does daughter London impact your journey?
Okay. My daughter London. No, so you know what? It's London is, and I'm not saying we say this all about all of our children, and I always say, London, you were in a rush to get here because she was born very early, and I understand your rush. It was to make me better, and so in that, in all of the things where London's impact is that she is my most critical critic. And I know that in her criticism, it comes from no place but love, right? Because she looks at me, and the way she looks at me in awe is something that I wouldn't trade for the world. And she sent me a picture of when she was a little bitty baby, and I was bathing her, and she said, "Mom, I've loved you since then." And so it means the world. So yes, London, thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Mrs.
It's on.
Okay. Hello, Mrs. Irving. My name is Kenara Davis.
Hi, Kenara.
I recently became certified with the MBPA last year.
Congrats.
I actually saw you at the seminar in New York earlier this year, but I didn't get a chance to talk to you then. But I've been so inspired by your story and the things that you've said over the years, from the value of building trust and relationships in this industry, being strategic, operating in your influence, and being creative. What advice would you give to a new agent who is actively scouting up-and-coming talent, but doesn't have a track record or success stories to close on a client and their families?
Take the dozen out. Take the dozen out. Don't walk in with a negative of, I don't have, because I think that there is a tremendous value that you bring to the table for any athlete that is looking to hire you. The first is the fact that you stood up and posed a question about how can I grow. The fact that you're not dealing with 5,000 different athletes and you're able to give an athlete a very individualized approach is a plus. The other side of it is that you are in an environment right now by passing the exam where you're so ingrained with all of the things that are happening in professional sports. Like, this is not a passive job. Like, you're not looking at it from a perspective of how much money I can make. You're looking at it from a perspective of what kind of difference can I make? Because there is so much going on in a professional athlete's life. I think a professional athlete today is very different than what a professional athlete was 5 years ago. So my best advice for you is take the don't out. Go out, continue to create your relationships, create your strategy, create your blueprint. You'll be fine. Don't give up.
So thank you so much.
No problem.
Greetings, everyone. When and where is your next speaking engagement? And how may we collaborate with the Empowerment Series, yourself and Mr. Johnson, in the future?
That I don't know. My schedule's a little wonky for the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'm trying to get it figured out, but I'm open to having conversations, based on my time permitting. I like things like this because like I said, I want to be intentional and I want to really help people. I'm not here to get, 50,000 followers on social. I'm here to make an impact in somebody's life in such a way that they are able to provide for their families, past generation. So that's what's most important to me, but I definitely am open and will definitely be able to let you know when the next one comes.
Larry Lundy, President of Lundy Market Group and Black Sports Professionals, North Texas, and you have an open invitation to come to speak to us anytime.
Thank you.
2 questions. Can you talk about what you learned at BET selling when your numbers were high, yet they didn't give the value to our marketplace? Mm-hmm. And then number 2, can you talk about the Player TV partnership investment, how that came about, and what does that look like going forward?
Sure. So with BET and when I was there, it was really about education because so often media is a very homogenous, vanilla industry. So what was happening at the time was you would have a 22-year-old right out of college making a determination of what a person of color or what, if I am selling a particular product, and there was a statement made that black people don't eat pork, and I was like, are you kidding me right now? Really? Black people do eat pork? No, they don't. Or the statement that was made that black people don't feed their pets pet food; they feed their pets table scraps. And I'm like, not my mother. not my mother nor any other black family that I know. And so it was really about this education, because when you are in a very homogenous place or situation, you kind of go into I call it the conspiracy theories of what other cultures do. And it's not until you're really educated to say, oh no, let me show you a picture of my mother and her dog, Bentley. That dog gets better service than her own children. The dog has a bed, the dog has a bedroom, the dog has clothes, the dog has shoes. She loves the dog. The dog comes first, okay? That is something that you have to really educate people on. And that was what I loved, was being able to go in and say, black people are not this monolithic group. They look different. They behave different. Let me talk to you about the impact of fraternities and sororities. Let me talk to you about the historically black colleges and what they do. Let me talk to you about what community is within the black community, because there are sisters and brothers and cousins that don't share DNA, but they're mentioned in the obituaries simply because they were a part of the family. And so that is something that you need to understand, because you can't look at the group as a monolithic group. And going into Players TV, so Players TV is a platform that really resolved around players that I want to create my own narrative. And not only do I want to create my own narrative, but I want to create that content that speaks to my interests more than me being a professional basketball player or a football player or a hockey player or a tennis player. I have interests that are beyond that. And so at the point before Players TV was created, you just saw athletes for how many points did they score? What were their assists? What were their rebounds? What were their stats? But you didn't know that there were certain players that were phenomenal artists, or that were amazing graphic designers, or could create, one of my players is a young lady named KK Arnold, who's a master with Lego blocks. Those are things that are untraditional that sports networks never talked about, because they really relied on the conversation of how many points did you score, how many rebounds, and how many assists. And so Players TV was really designed to be that platform to have that conversation around what are your interests. If your interests are in cars, we can have that conversation. If your interests are in maternal health, which is something that Kyrie is very interested in, we can have that conversation and really provide a dimension of athletes, and especially professional athletes, that the world would probably never see if we relied upon mainstream media companies. So hopefully I answered both. Perfect.
Good morning. I am Valencia King, a journalist and PR specialist as well. First, thank you for your time. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. My question is, with all that you do, what do you do to decompress? And is that something you've had to learn along the way or adjust along the way?
Learned along the way. And I will dedicate, whether or not it's a Saturday, and I get lost in the world. And it is my most favorite thing to do, because it's the moments that my phone is at the bottom of my bag and I just journey. And so I will either go to my acupuncturist, Dr. Stephanie, and she'll be like, all right, we're gonna do, and she's a woman of color, and I love her. I'll get a massage, or I'll just journey around New York City and go to places that I've never been before, or places that I'm super familiar with. I love to people watch because it is my education, and I don't do it from a perspective of making judgment, but I love to just watch people and how they interact in the world, right? Because it kind of helps me as I'm thinking about certain deals and different things for my various athletes. But I just love to just, for a few hours, my phone is in the bottom of my bag and I just get lost in the world. So that's my decompression thing. Thank you.
I love what y'all are doing with Players TV. I got to talk to Kyrie on Media Day about his Twitch streaming. Face completely lit up, so I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's my pleasure to be here from Fort Worth. My name is Jim Austin, and I've kind of got a media company, Jim Austin Online, and I'm releasing my new podcast show, and I'd love to talk to you about that. Right now, I've been reached out in my business about AI, and we, as African Americans, need to connect with AI because that's where the future is going. A lot of things we hear about them, replacing jobs and not being able to work. But I think working in that field is something. I want to know, in sports, have you used AI, and do you have some knowledge nuggets for me and the group here? And I want to invite you over to Fort Worth, where the West begins, to
So
enjoy
I'm a
our.
Houstonian now. You know how Houstonians feel.
Well,
You know how Houstonians. I was talking to somebody yesterday. Like, Houston, no. I was like, no. Houston is alive and well. It is Beyonce country. So, but no. All teasing aside. I am a fan of AI to a point. And so I use AI as a helper. Sometimes I write things and I'm like, ooh, let me do a triple check on this tone, right? Because what you write lives forever. And sometimes I push it through AI to be like, so if you read this, what would you think, right? To give me an unbiased approach. So I am a big proponent of AI from an assistant perspective. I am not a proponent of AI from a takeover, my whole life is all about AI, because I think it lacks, no matter how much machine learning and how many prompts you send through, it sends the message, it does not give you a human component. And that is the part that bothers me. When we think about it in sports, I know that it's been used sometimes in certain media because it's just cheaper, right? To use it to kind of create content and to do things from that perspective. I'm not, I've used it before. I'm not on board with it 100%, but I think that because there's such a thirst for content, it's almost a necessary, I don't want to call it evil, it's almost a necessary tool because we cannot provide as much content as people want. So I think it's a necessary quick tool to use. If we're talking about AI in the means of a predictive analysis of, the lifespan of a player, I absolutely am not aligned with that. Because I fully believe and fully think that it's based off of what you put in it. It's going to give you whatever somebody puts in it, that's what it's going to dish out. And you don't know, like players today, if you talked to AI probably 10 years ago and said, how long is the average life of a player if they're averaging this, that, and a third, and they would probably say, oh, they probably have 3 more years in the league. And we've seen players that are 15 years, 16 years, 17 years in the league that are scoring more points now in a league that is super aggressive and like the movement is insane, and they're doing better than what they were doing 5 years ago. Should we be using AI for that? And that's where I disagree. So hopefully answered all of your questions.
Just one more statement.
Sure.
And I know a lot of people that Google are using ChatGPT right now.
Yeah, and that's my girl. That's my girl.
Whoever's in line, this is all the time we have questions for, because we're already running over. But while you're getting ready for the next question, Barbara Newton has a question for you online. And she says, how do you go beyond fear when what you believe God is calling you to is bigger than you? Let me ask that. Can you say that again?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you go beyond fear when what you believe God is calling you to do is bigger than you?
And this is going to sound, and the reason why I wanted you to repeat it, because it's going to sound unrealistic, but I always tell myself I have no fear. I just do. I've experienced just things that my friends are like, you should write a book, because it is insane that anyone could have experienced as much as you've experienced in your life. And I was just always like, I have no fear. I just have no fear. So if this, I've walked into this saying, God, I want to be a vessel. I want to walk in the path that you want me to walk. And so if I believe in myself and I believe that I'm not in this alone, how can I ever have fear?
Or to act in the midst of fear too. Right?
Yeah, I don't have any fear. And so, are there moments that you're a tad bit nervous? Of course, but are there moments that I am super fearful? I'm like, the two most important relationships I have is the relationship I have with myself and the relationship I have with God. And He's not going to leave me by myself, so why I have fear?
Drop the mic. All right.
How you doing? My name is Leland Bruce. Had a question. So how do you kind of decipher, how do you attract potential partners that may not know that you're interested in them? So like from the media side or also the player agent side?
I'm a long interviewer. I'm horrible. Because because I love people and I love the human spirit, I think it can sometimes be my weakness. I have this desire to help. I have this desire to be there for people. And I'm just a very long interviewer. And so when I think of deals, especially long-term deals, I'm very much I want to know everything about you, because it's not about, we're not check driven as much as we are movement impact driven. And so we don't, all of the deals that we do, particularly with Kyrie, whether or not it is Anta, which was really about creativity, which was really something that we were very intentional about, we did not want to partner with a brand that did not allow him creative control, because that was important to him. We did not want to partner with a brand that didn't have a vision, or a brand that didn't allow us to really be able to come in and talk about what was important and what we needed to flourish. And we interviewed for a while. It wasn't all right, how much are you giving? That wasn't it. I think that some people will be like, you may have left money on the table, and I'm like, absolutely not. Because now you're seeing so many deals post those deals that have the same components that we have in the original Anta deal that was legendary and groundbreaking. Whether or not it's McDavid or any of the people that we've partnered with since, we are super intentional, because it's not about the check, it's really about the impact.
Did both or either brand come to you guys, or did you guys reach out to them?
A little bit of both. So in the case of Anta, there were, hey, we'd be interested. And I was like, absolutely not. We're locked into a deal, but I'll be willing to have a conversation with you about some other athletes that I may represent or come across. And so when the opportunity did arise, and it was really, let's have a conversation about it, we really sat down and were both very vulnerable about, this is who I'm very much about, this is what you're getting, right? And I want to know, what am I getting on this side? Because I'd rather us part as friends and say, this isn't the right partnership for us, versus going into this and saying, all right, how much you got? Because we're not that type of people. And so through that partnership and through that approach, we've been able to do more than we ever thought was conceivable.
Thank you.
Stephen Shirley from
Hi,
Howard.
Stephen.
My question, you got a student athlete, I was use Baylor, you got the parent, you got the coach,
Yep.
you got the agent come in these days, and sometimes, not always, sometimes the agent, once they sign with the agent, the coaches can't do nothing, and
Yeah.
sometimes their friend can't. How do you balance that? Because
Yeah.
the kid is also going to an agent who knows nothing about him, and then his coaches left out,
Yeah.
the AD and all that.
I think that's a longer conversation. I think, in this new around NIL, it is, it's very financially motivated. And you have people everywhere that are making a lot of promises, and you have kids that are making, in some instances, 10 times more than what their families were ever making. And I think that a lot of the groundwork has to be built at home. I think I always say to parents that it is super important that you sit with your child and that you are the parent. Because when you stop being the parent, the piranhas are able to come in, and their goal is to tear everything up, because their objective is, this is a transaction. And so I'm very much, I talk to a lot of parents often. You have parents that are like, we're ready to sign, and I'm like, you're not ready yet, because what I want there to be is the family structure to be like this, unbreakable. Because when the family structure becomes like this, your child becomes a commodity in a space that, when that good spoils, they're gone. They leave. And so as long as you're like this and you're having this conversation and you're able to pressure point the relationship and you're still committed at the end of the day, you're fine. Then you can have a conversation, because in this, you're determining what is the right agent for you, right? And I'm not saying that child and parent aren't going to disagree. That comes with it, because that's in any kind of relationship. But if you're like this, you're really able to create that foundation of what that agent needs to be. Every agent isn't good for every kid, right? I may be good for one and may not be good for someone else. I'm not the most transactional agent because I really look at what is your future after this sport. You know, what are the foundational pieces that you're creating, because you don't know when today may be the last time you dribble that ball. That it's just never determined. So how do we really create for you something that lasts generation after generation after generation after generation? There's a reason why they start these kids so early and start giving them money. It's really for them to get it back at the end of the day. And if they can get back 80% of it, then it just makes sense, right, for them. But then for us, it's like God has given you this amazing talent. How do you continuously, for the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that? That's called generational wealth. And that's something that we talk about, but we don't really put the foundation for.
Good morning.
Hi.
Thank you for my 2 pages of wisdom notes. As a dual English and theater major, my name is Twala Saws, and I'm also an executive member of Ladies in Film and Television of Dallas. I wanted to know, how can we network with you, collaborate with our organization, Ladies in Film and Television of Dallas?
I think we just probably need to schedule some time to just figure out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense for us, and how we can help and how we may not, because it may be a no today because like I said, timing is of the issue, as well as what are we doing now that makes sense, or how can I put you in front of some other people where it may not make sense for us, it can make sense for somebody else. But I think the first comes from just having like just a brief call and then kind of going from there.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hello, my name is Dr. Travis Dion Brock. I love the Black Girl Magic. Awesome. You're amazing. My question is this. I love a good origin story. Amazing. So when you were 22 years old on that 13th day, Friday, you were so optimistic about everything, you had your heartbreak. What in that moment after the heartbreak allowed you to keep going? Because a lot of individuals can't keep going in the heartbreak.
Right. For me, I think, you know, and my dad is probably cheering if he watches this, the fact that he said, make sure you love the city more than you love the guy. And I fell in love with New York. And so I think that was a strong foundational part for me. But also, I think my parents really instilled in me this vision or this value system that I can achieve and accomplish whatever I set my mind to. And so I think that was just a strong part of it too. Like, my heart was broken. My heart is probably still, I think if you dig in there, you like, there's some residual damage from that, right? But I look at it as a learning experience. Would I move someplace else for somebody? Absolutely not. So we've accomplished, we put that there. But I think, you know, for me, it was just, you know, and if you don't have that value system, it's not the end of the world. Life still goes on. There's more to love. There's more to experience. And I think for anybody that's going through that, it's better to kind of look at what those mistakes are, because going through things and repeating the mistakes over and over again means that you haven't learned the lesson. So it's understanding what is the lesson that was meant for you to learn, and kind of restructuring and revaluing yourself in that moment, because your value system is hurt, your ego is hurt. And so ego is one of those most fragile things. And I think that you have to almost put the ego aside and know that, you know, there's opportunity to be loved again, there's an opportunity to experience, but you pick yourself up and you learn the lesson and you kind of restore what that shattered ego. That's my best.
Hi, Dorothy Gentry with iMessenger Media, Texas Metro News. I was looking at your shoes.
I remember you. The basketball,
Yes.
you did the whole thing about the basketball, and there was something else. It's good
Yes,
to see
ma'am.
you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I was looking at your shoes.
Yes.
Are they from your company? And then what is the legacy that you want for A11 Sports for
Yes.
the shoes?
No, they're not. So I'm a heel girl, and that would be another weakness because I love very, very different shoes. I'm going to talk to Kai about creating heels. He's going to tell me no, but it could be interesting to do that. So no, where I want All-Even Sports to be, I've done my life legacy if I have athletes that say, this is the best experience of my life. And it was the best decision that I ever made because it made my life that much better. That's what's important to me.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hello. I don't know if you guys want to clap. Hello, my name is Zaquavia Blewett. I am a co-founder of Juice Sports Agency. I'm currently certified in the NBA and the WNBA.
Yeah.
And my question to you, I'm kind of old school, I had to write it down.
No problem.
How do you separate being Kyrie's agent versus being his mother with such a powerhouse NBA player?
I love that question. We have moments where I know I crossed the line, right? And he knows he crossed the line, but I think we also have those spaces of understanding each other enough to know this is a moment to talk business and this is a moment to talk family. And I think we've just established that over the years. I've known him since he was 8, right? And so I remember and there are moments that, I see him and I still see him as that little boy kind of peering through the curtains at me as I'm kind of walking up the sidewalk. And when I see that, when I'm talking to him, I know that this is the moment to be mom. This is the moment to be the parental figure. And then when I see him and I'm talking to him and I see him as Kyrie, the basketball, then I talk business. So there are moments he come in, okay, let's talk business. We're not talking business. Give me the goods. Talk to me. Tell me what's going on. Give me all the tea. And he's like, oh, you play too much. I was like, no, I want the tea. Tell me everything. Tell me everything. And then there are moments that he'll call me. I was like, let's talk business. He's like, no, I want the tea. I was like, there's no tea. What are you talking about? I need you to do. No, I want the tea. So it's a tug of war. There are days that I get it right. There are days that I get it wrong. But we are so intertwined by love. Like love is the stitch in what it is that we do, right? And so we are unapologetically honest with each other. And I accept him for who he is, and he accepts me for who I am. And so I think with that, it's really just this really, it's God orchestrated. It's God put this together. So that's the best way I can answer it.
Thank you. That was an amazing answer.
Thank you.
Keep giving it up. Come on.
Thank you.
Stay up here. Edward, can you hear me? All right. Hey, so were we not blessed? Were we not blessed?
Thank you.
Let me tell you something. The purpose of life is to love, give, and serve. And I think you are an embodiment of that.
Thank you.
So thank you. And I love it when you just give, because giving is complete after you give, right? I have a gift for you. And this is from I call her my Aunt Mama. My Aunt Zelma. Most of you may have heard of my Aunt Zelma before. My parents passed away when I was in my 20s, and my uncle and aunt were the ones that stepped up to watch over me. I'm kind of nervous about this because my aunt wrote a book about her husband. It's entitled Seasons of the Journey, the biography of Dr. James Frank. He's a trailblazer, a leader, a legend, which is all that you are.
Thank you.
You're an embodiment of that. And I told my aunt that I wanted to give you this book, and so she's in Atlanta. So she sent me a note, a handwritten note, and it came in yesterday, so I want to read it to you. So to Shetellia, I can't even, I'm kind of nervous now.
No, you're fine.
Right? I wish you all the best throughout the seasons of your impactful journey. Keep shaping stories that outlast the headlines.
Oh, that means everything.
With love, Aunt Zelma.
Oh, thank
this
you.
is my gift to you.
This means everything. This means so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, wow. This means everything.
So I'll tell you, my uncle, for those of you who don't know, my uncle, Dr. James Frank, was the first African-American president of the National Collegiate Athletic Association. So most of you probably didn't even know that, right? He's done a lot of impactful things in sports. And the NCAA is realizing the benefits of what he has done. So if you want to know more about my Uncle Jim, you can go to drjamesfrank.com. But I wanted to give you that book because it's part of love. And so thank you for sharing yourself, your family, your time, which is your most precious resource with us in this community. You're online. I want to thank you for all of your comments and share this with somebody else because this is truly a blessing. We ran a little bit over, but I want to thank you for sticking in with us. Those who are here, those who are online, don't keep this to yourself. Stay connected with the Empower series because, hey, we can be a blessing, right? So stay connected. If you have any questions, you can email me at thrive@empowerseries.com. We are a nonprofit organization, so if you want to give, you can definitely give on our website or give by texting give or donate to 214-225-6337. But more importantly, I want you to come to the Empower series and get what you're supposed to get from the Empower series. That's more important than anything else. Your relationship with yourself and be empowered. Share this with someone else so that this can be a blessing to them. And then let us know how it's impacted you. So online, I'm going to say, goodbye for now, but see you next year on the third Saturday of every month, January through November. We're here empowering the community, so stay connected with us. Underneath the video are links to other flyers you have in front of you, our schedule for 2026, but do not let this be the end. This is the beginning. So thank you, and give it up again.
This is beautiful.